Sai Ram and welcome to the next session in computational linear algebra. After getting a very good idea and hold of vectors, its magnitude and direction, dot products of vectors, and various properties about different matrices, column picture and row pictures of multiplication as well as equations, let us get to the heart of linear algebra, which is a vector space. Let's begin this session with a prayer. Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarvaः Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let's begin by understanding what is a vector space. And with the knowledge that we already have, it is not very easy to not very difficult to understand what's a vector space. So we're going to define a vector space as a set of vectors. So that's the first thing. So we'll say it's a set of vectors, and with there are certain rules for two operations, two important operations: vector addition and scalar multiplication. By now we are very thorough with what are these operations, right? If we take M to be a set of vectors which is closed under vector addition and multiplication and scalar multiplication. What do we mean by closed? If I pick up two vectors in M in that set, the vector addition, the sum of the vectors will also belong to the same set. Similarly, if I pick a vector, any vector from M, and apply for any real constant a scalar multiplication of that vector, that will also belong to the same set. Such a set we call as a vector space. Okay, now apart from that, the addition and the scalar multiplication that we define here has to follow certain rules. So let us look at the properties that it needs to satisfy. So these two operations must satisfy. First thing we understand, this is the commutative property of vector addition. The second was the associative property of vector addition. It must also have what is called as a unique zero vector. You can't have multiple. A unique zero vector such that when we sum it up with the zero vector, we get back the same vector. And for that should be true for any vector belonging to this set. Similarly, this is about the zero vector, which is the identity vector for vector addition. Similarly, we should have an inverse concept, right? That's the idea here. So for every single vector in M, we should also have what is called as a minus V, such that the vector addition takes us to the zero vector. So remember, this is not a zero number here, this is a zero vector. Similarly, here we are talking about the zero vector. Okay. Now we move to scalar multiplication property. So we have four properties on vector addition. There is going to be four properties again on scalar multiplication. So in scalar multiplication, we are working only with real numbers. And that's why the vector spaces that we define can also be called as real vector spaces. If we go for complex, then we could talk about complex vector spaces as well. So let's stick to real numbers for now. And for we are going to have a real number 1 such that 1 into the vector will always give me the vector. Similarly, if I pick up any two real constants and any vector from this set, I must this equation must hold. This is something like associative rule on the multiplication of scalars. So if I have C1, C2 being multiplied together on V, I can also factor it and then say it's C1 times C2V, right? So this should hold. Similarly, for any constant, any real constant and two vectors, the distributive law must hold. So if I have C times V1 plus V2, it must be equal to C times V1 plus C times V2. Similarly, the distributive law on the real constants must hold in this vector set or the space called M. So if I have C1 plus C2 times V, it must give me C1V plus C2V, right? So these are the 8 properties, and 4 of them are for vector addition, 4 of them are for scalar multiplication. Okay, so let us try and take a look at a few examples of vector spaces. So one vector space obviously we can look at is the real numbers themselves, right? So R1 we could consider, or R2 or Rn, or in fact even R infinity, right? So how do we understand that this is let's talk about R2. How do we understand that's a vector space? So we can pick up any two vectors here. So let's say I pick up these two vectors, and if I add them, I know that the result is going to be I'm sorry, yeah, this is a -1 here. Yeah, so the result is going to be part of R2. Okay, now the most important thing is we are going by the definition, the general definition of vector addition. Remember how we defined it? We defined it as the scalar sum of every single component of the vector correspondingly, right? That's how we defined it. Therefore, for that definition of vector addition, we are saying that R2 is closed under this vector addition. Similarly, we can pick up scalar multiplication here, and we are aware that it will be closed, and we know very well for the general definition of this vector addition and the normal scalar multiplication, all these properties will definitely hold. Okay, how do we know they hold? Because we know that real number addition is commutative, and therefore vector addition using real number addition will become commutative. Similarly, we can argue out for every single property here, right? Therefore, the idea is that when we say R2 is a vector space, remember we are talking about a specific operation of vector addition and let's say scalar multiplication. Right, so scalar multiplication. So I don't want to put a dot here, so because it could mean the dot product. So we will call it, just leave it as scalar multiplication. And with respect to these two operations, we know that all these become vector spaces. Okay, not only just real numbers, right? We could also look at m by n matrices. Even they will form a vector space. Okay, let's just try and take something like say 3 by 2 matrix. Let's say I have this matrix. And if I have say another matrix, obviously when I add them, I am going to get another 3 by 2 matrix, right? So this is a 3 by 2, sorry, so 3 by 2 and 3 by 2, obviously it's going to give me another 3 by 2 matrix. Okay, now that conveys that it's getting closed under vector addition. And what is the way we are defining vector addition here? So remember, we call this operation as vector addition, but actually it's adding matrices, right? Which means that an element here is a matrix which should be viewed as a vector in this vector space, right? So similarly, we can talk about scalar multiplication. So it's just multiplying every single element here by the scalar, and that would again form a 3 by 2 matrix. Since we are using the definition of real number addition and for real number multiplication, we know that all these properties will get satisfied, and therefore m by n matrices will also be a vector space. Okay, so that is just a brief introduction to vector space. Let's move to one more interesting property, which is interesting definition called as a subspace. So what if we pick a subset of a vector space and we find that these properties hold? So this is how we are going to define. We are saying a subspace of a vector space, right? So imagine whenever we talk about a subspace, we have to talk about its parent space. A subspace of a vector space is a non-empty subset. So this is a very important point we are discussing. It's a non-empty subset such that it is closed under vector addition and scalar multiplication, right? This is a very simple definition. We now need not talk about all the 8 properties. Why we don't need to talk about the 8 properties? Because vector addition and scalar multiplication is obviously well defined for the vector space. So those 8 properties will definitely hold. So what is the extra criteria we are talking about for a subspace? A subspace is a non-empty subset such that it is closed under vector addition and scalar multiplication. Which means if I pick up any 2 elements from this subset and do a vector addition, it again belongs to the subset. If I pick up any vector from this subset and do a scalar multiplication on it with any real constant, it will again go back to this subset, right? And such a subset, such a non-empty subset, I call it as a subspace of a given vector space. Now in our language of what we already know, when we say that these two are getting satisfied, it's very simple for us to understand now that what we are saying is linear combinations of vectors from the subset stay in the subset, right? So they stay in the subset means that they belong back to the same subset. So if I have a subset, a non-empty subset, and if I have linear combinations of those vectors also falling into the same subset, we call it a subspace of the given vector space. So let's try and take a look at few examples and see if they are really subspaces. So let's talk about the line in R square, right? So you can imagine any kind of line in R square. The way we look at is that try and take if we have some line, let's say in the real space, let's say I talk about some line here, right? So extend it infinitely both sides, and pick up any vector on the line, right? What we know from linear combinations, we know that no, if I add them, it will fall on the same line. In fact, we know that if I pick up any linear combination of them, it will again fall on the same line, right? So the question is, does it form a subspace? Yeah, quite close. But what about the linear combination when the scalars become 0? Because we're saying that we must have all linear combinations falling into the same subset. So if I pick up the vectors on this line, all of them do fall. But question is, what if I pick up 0 and 0 as the scalars and try a linear combination of any two vectors on this line? So it would give me the 0 vector, and if the line does not pass through the 0, then this is not a subspace. Right? So that's a very important point. So a line in R square, I'm going to say passing through the origin, right? So when I qualify it like this, I'm going to say yes, it's a subspace. But if this is not given, I don't think we should call it a subspace. Yeah, it could be a subset, but it's definitely not a subspace. What about a line in R3? Right, so I think the argument is going to be similar. You pick up any two vectors on that line and take a linear combination, it will definitely fall on the line. We know this. But if the scalars become zeros, then it is not going to fall there because it's going to reach the origin, and therefore the condition is similar. A line in R3, in fact we can generalize it to a line in Rn, is a subspace if it passes through the origin. Okay, so the next one is, what about a plane in R3? Okay, so if I have a plane, let's talk about some plane, let's say z equal to 3, right? So when I say z equal to 3, you can imagine as something parallel to the xy plane. At z equal to 3 will look like this, right? It will be parallel to the xy plane, another wall at z equal to 3, little ahead in the z axis. Now is that a subspace, right? So you pick up any two vectors on that plane and take a linear combination, you will definitely hit vector on the plane itself. Now how do I understand the linear combination? Remember, linear combination is like moving only in the direction of those vectors, some multiples of them, and adding them together. Now a huge plane, an infinite plane at z equal to 3, how could it ever take you away from the plane, right? It can't take you behind the plane, or it can't take you in front of the plane, which means that you will remain on the plane, and therefore yes, it does appear to me as a subspace. But the only criteria again is going to be, if I pick up the real constants to be zeros, then this plane will not be a subspace because we don't have the origin, or one of the linear combinations is missing there, and therefore again we will say that a plane in R3 which is passing through the origin is going to be a subspace. So if I say z equal to 3 and ask if that's a subspace, no, that could be a subset but can't be a subspace. But if I talk about the xy plane, right, the general xy plane is at z equal to 0 at the origin, and therefore that will become a subspace. So here is another beautiful example. What about just the single vector called 0 vector in any Rn, right? Does that form a subset or does it form a subspace? So obviously we know it's a subset because it's got one element there. The first thing is, for a subspace it must be non-empty. Okay, so that condition gets satisfied. Let's talk about the linear combinations of the 0 vector. What would happen, right? If I take any linear combination, it's going to be the same 0 vector again. And does it contain the origin? Obviously yes, because that's the only vector we have, and therefore it's very interesting to note that the single 0 vector is a subspace. Okay, probably the smallest subspace that you could ever have in any Rn. Okay, so let's move ahead. What about the first quadrant in R2, right? So we're talking about this quadrant, right? What about the first quadrant in R2, right? Does that form a subspace? Let's try. So if I pick up, we know this, right? So if I pick up a vector here, and if I pick up another vector here and take linear combinations of them, we know that it's kind of going to help us reach somewhere here. Right? All this we had done earlier. Okay, but would it really be the case if I pick up all scalar constants? What if I pick the negation of this and try and take a linear combination? I may land up with a vector here, right? Or maybe I may take a negation of this with, right? So one obvious case is going to be that if we talk about scalar multiplication of the vectors in quadrant 1 with negative real constants, obviously they are not going to be in the first quadrant, and therefore first quadrant in R2 does contain the origin but refuses to be a vector space. That's because not all linear combinations fall in the first quadrant. It's a subset, but it's not a subspace. Now we had a problem with scalar multiplication, and therefore if you try extending them to the other quadrant, maybe let's try and look at first and third together, right? So what if that helps us, right? So we want to see first and third quadrants, would they form vector spaces? But remember what we had discussed, if I pick up a vector here, and obviously we may be getting a vector in the fourth quadrant. If I pick up 1 and 1 here, I may be getting here in the second quadrant. Again, linear combinations will fail us. This will definitely not be a subspace of R2. So let me just pick up a simple example to show you that it's not going to be a subspace. So let me just try. Let's say I have the vector 1 3. This is part of the first quadrant, right? So let me pick up another in the third quadrant. Let's say that I have here a -2, and let's say I have -1 here, right? So this is definitely part of the third quadrant. So let's just add this up. So this is going to give me a -1, and this is going to give me a 2, right? So which quadrant does this fall, right? This is going to fall in the second quadrant, right? Because x is negative, y is positive. And what do we understand from here? Linear combinations of vectors in 1 and 3 is not again falling in 1 and 3, and therefore our result was true, that 1 and 3 is not going to be a subspace. Okay, but does it mean that we don't have any smaller subspaces in R2? Because we are taking large subsets like the first quadrant or the first and third, they are refusing to be subspaces. It looks like I have to pick up 1 2 3 4 to form the subspace, which is entire R2. But remember, a few seconds back what we discussed is here, a line that's passing through the origin in R2 is going to be a subspace in a day, which means that we have got infinite subspaces in R2, right? Only thing is the quadrants don't form the subspace. So another very interesting example, like what about lower triangular matrices taking in any n by n matrix, right? So we can talk about lower triangular probably for square matrices. So let's try, right? So let's just pick up two lower triangular matrices. So when we take a lower triangular matrix, we know that the diagonal will have something. Maybe something here could be non-zero, but definitely above this is gone, right? So all this is going to be zeros. So it's pretty obvious that two lower triangular matrices, when I add, is going to be lower triangular, and a scalar multiple of a lower triangular matrix will also be lower triangular only, right? And therefore we know that this will form a subspace. What about symmetric matrices? Another interesting example. So let's take an example and see. If I have a matrix like this, let's say I have A and B here, a symmetric matrix 2 by 2 is going to look like this. Try and do an addition here. So if let me try and put here another one here. So let's say this is D and D. So let's add this. So I'm going to get here A plus A1, and here I'm going to get a B plus B1. What would we get here? This would be a C plus D, and here again we'll have C plus D. That's turning out to be symmetric. Do a scalar multiplication of this, that will obviously be symmetric. And what do we have? Symmetric matrices in any n by n is going to be a subspace, right? Similarly, you can talk about diagonal matrices being a subspace. You can talk about upper triangular matrices being subspaces of any n by n matrix vector space. Okay. From the idea of understanding vector spaces and subspaces, we're going to go into something very interesting called the column space of a matrix. Okay, so for first time I think we're going to discuss something with respect to m by n matrix, and which means it's quite general, not restricted to square matrices. We're moving away from that. We define a column space of a matrix. So that's the first point to understand. If A is given to me as a matrix, then we define the column space of A, where A is some m by n matrix. Okay, what's the definition? The definition is it's denoted by C of A, all linear combinations of the column vectors of A, right? So if I have a m by n matrix, what would be the column vectors? So I have here 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? So 1 2 is one column vector, 3 4 is another column vector, 5 6 is another column vector. And in general, what would they be part of, right? So the column vectors would be belonging to, should I say, R m, right? think about this carefully. Since the number of rows are m, column vectors, there are n such vectors, but each of them will be a m scalar or m element column vector. So each of those vectors is going to be in Rm. So what's the definition of the column space of A? Pick up the column vectors of A and take any linear combinations of them. That set of vectors of linear combinations of the column vectors of A form what's called as the column space of A. And a very interesting property that we are going to look at is the column space a subspace of Rm. Remember, the way we have defined it itself, we are saying that this is the column space, right? We are saying it's a space, but obviously just by calling it a space, it can't be a space. We'll have to really prove that it's a subspace. Then we can understand that this is going to be a space. Okay, let's see if that's going to be a subspace. And what's the definition of a subspace? Two properties. One is vector addition, second is scalar multiplication, and it must be closed under C of A. So let's pick up two vectors in the column space of A and see what happens to the vector addition and what happens to its scalar multiplication. Okay, so let us take that the m by n matrix A have these column vectors, right? So a1, a2, an are the column vectors of A, right? So look at the way I'm looking at the view, right? A1 is the first column, a2 is the second column, like that. I have n columns, and each of them is actually this is m by n matrix, which means that each of them have got m components, and I have n such vectors. Okay, so let's pick up any two random vectors in column space of A, right? The column space of A means that these must be linear combinations of these column vectors, right? Okay, so this is how I define. So I'm going to say that if they belong to the column space of A, they got to be a linear combination of the column vectors of A. Okay, similarly with respect to V2, so I pick up C1 to Cn here and D1 to some real constants for both of them. Let's add up here the left hand sides, and obviously it's going to give me this part in my right hand side. And what do we have here? These are real constants, and this is again a linear combination of the column vectors of A. So what does it mean? It means that the right hand side belongs to the column space of A, which means that V1 plus V2 belongs to column space of A. Now very interestingly, we must understand that since our definition of vector addition had the distributive property, C1 A1 plus D1 A1 actually gave rise to C1 plus D1 times A1, right? So remember that it's not like a simple real number addition or multiplication. These are vector additions, and since the properties of vector addition hold, that's given to us that in Rm definitely it will hold. Because of that, we are able to enjoy these properties and bring out this, saying that the it is closed under vector addition. Let's look at scalar multiplication. So let me pick up some constant, real constant k, and multiply it, and this is what we're going to get. Similarly, I use the properties that we had looked at for, let's say, distributive and associative property of scalar multiplication, and this is what will give rise to. And remember that each one of them, kc1, kc2, kcn, they are also going to be real constants, and therefore this is a linear combinations of the column vectors of A, and we got it. Therefore, this is again closed in the column space of A, closed under scalar multiplication. And what do we have? That means that column space of A is very much a subspace of Rm. Okay. Another perspective, a very beautiful perspective to understand the column space. If I have, remember that A is any m by n matrix. If you are given this linear system of equation where we know Ax equal to B, we can look at a new perspective. We know this idea, right? We know that the vector x is going to be all the scalars which will be used in the linear combination of the column vectors of A. Those are the scalars which are part of this vector x. Okay, so we need to find the scalars such that linear combination of the columns of A produce the B. We are aware of it. And what does that mean? It means that the right hand side is a linear combination of the columns of A. Oh, what does that mean? That means that B must belong to column space of A. Or I can say that this equation is solvable. We can have a solution only if B belongs to the column space of A. Right? So think of a z equal to 0 plane, xy plane, and pick up any two vectors. We know that it's going to be remain in the xy plane. So think of a vector that's coming out in the z direction. Obviously, there is no solution for it. Why is there no solution for it? Because all linear combinations of them cannot produce this vector that's coming out on z, because z does not belong to the column space of A. So that's what we are saying. We are saying Ax equal to B is solvable if B belongs to the column space of A. With this perspective, let's try and prove again that C of A is a column space by looking at Ax equal to B. Right, so it's just another way to prove this. So let's take B1 and B2. which belong to column space of A. What does it mean now? If something belongs to column space of A, it means that I have a solution. That means that I have a solution such that A times that is giving me this B vector. Since I have B1 and B2 belong to column space of A, there exist x1 and x2 such that ax1 is equal to b1 and ax2 equal to b2. Similarly, just add up the left hand sides, add up this right hand sides here, use the distributive law, bring this out and say a into x1 plus x2 is going to give me b1 plus b2. Okay, and what does that tell me? It tells me that b1 plus b2 has got to belong to column space of A. Now you can't use the previous definition of we knowing that b1 and b2 are part of column space of A, their addition will come out to be part of column space of A. Remember that we can't use that property. We are trying to prove that C of A is column space. So how we prove is, since there is a solution to this equation, which means that x1 plus x2, right, is some x3, such that ax3 is giving me rise to this right hand side, it means that the right hand side must belong to the column space of A, and therefore it is closed under vector addition. Very similarly, we can take a constant here and multiply on both sides and use the properties of scalar multiplication, bring it inside here. A times the Cx1 is giving me rise to Cb1, which means the Cb1 again will belong to column space of A because I have a solution for it, which means that my C of A now becomes a column space. C of A now becomes a subspace, right? So that's because it's closed under vector addition and scalar multiplication, even with respect to this new perspective. Okay, so let's try and pick up a few examples and see whether we are able to find out what's the column space of A. Okay, here are we have very few simple examples to first try out. So let's say that A is this, right? So let's look at how will column space of A look like, right? So it's going to be linear combination of the column vectors of A, right? Which means that it's going to be C1 times 1 0 0 plus C2 times 0 1 0, and this is giving us this is going to be a C1, here it's going to be a C2, and that is 0 here, right? This is how my column space of A is going to look like. And what does that give us? Probably is giving us the entire xy plane part of R3, right? In R3, look at the xy plane, and column space of A is going to give rise to the xy plane. We do understand that xy plane is a subspace, and that's what it says. Okay. Now, an interesting point for argument is that if we are given Ax equal to B, if somebody tells us that this is my A times x, and if somebody says can you produce this vector 1 1 1, right? What's going to be your answer? Look at the column space of A. The column space of A gives me the xy plane, and what do we know? Using the vectors in xy plane, is it possible to come out of the plane? Impossible, because that plane is a space, it's a subspace. You really cannot come out of it. And therefore, what's the answer when somebody gives us the right hand side? Go and see whether the right hand side belongs to this subspace. Obviously no. You see that the third component is coming out from the xy plane, and what's the answer? That if this is my right hand side, there is no solution for this equation, right? So remember how we solved it is just by looking at what's the column space of A. So let's look at the next example. This is in R2 now. What will be the column space of A? Again, let me pick up C1 times 1 0 plus C2 times 0 1. So that's going to give rise to C1 C2. What does this give us? This is again giving us the xy plane. But is that the same as the previous one? No. The previous one is a subspace xy plane in R3. In this case, it's happening to be the entire vector space R2. They are totally different realms altogether, and let's not compare them at all. One is in R2, the other is in R3. Okay, here is the question. So for which right hand sides are we going to say that there is going to be a solution? So what does this produce? The column space of A is producing my entire R2, which means that if B or the right hand side belongs to this column space, we are going to say the solution exists. And where can B be? Obviously it has to be any one vector in R2, and that conveys clearly that for picking up any vector in R2 there will be a solution. Whereas here we said no, it can't be there, but here we are saying yes, it's got to be available because my column space is my entire R2. Okay, interesting. Okay, let's do the next one. So this time pick up the column combinations here. Obviously I'm going to get here C1 C2 C3, and what does this tell us? If I have x for let me say any B here, pick up any b here, I'm sure it's going to have a solution because it's giving me my entire R3, right? And that is why column spaces are very interesting, right? So next we are going to look at another subspace which is called as the null space of A. So this is the null space definition, a slightly different definition from the column space, and let's pay attention to how it's being defined, right? So null space of a matrix is going to be defined as the set of all the vectors x such that Ax is equal to 0. Now it's like saying that find the solutions, let's say find, when I say multiple, right? So all the solutions to the equation Ax equal to 0, the set of solution vectors form a space, and that is what we call as the null space of A. So again the question is going to be, calling it a space is one thing, but can we prove it's really a subspace of Rn, right? Another very important point to notice, should we say that null space of A is subspace of Rn or Rm? So remember that if I have a m cross n matrix, so let's say I have m by n, how many I'm going to have? These columns are going to be n, and I'm going to have m rows here, right? And therefore the number of components that I would have in my x is going to be n by 1, right? Because the number of components in x will be same as the number of columns here, right? That's how we take the linear combination of the column vectors, and therefore the vectors x or the vectors which are part of the null space have got to be subspace of Rn, not Rm. Okay, so let's try and prove this. It's a subspace of Rn. Let's take two vectors which are part of the null space, which means that Ax1 equal to 0 and Ax2 equal to 0. Simply add them up, and then we get that's again obviously equal to 0. And what does that show? It shows that the sum of the vectors, vector addition, is also part of the null space, which means it's closed under vector addition. Similarly, multiplied by a constant, the right hand side will still remain at 0, and we can bring the c inside with the vector, and we can make out that Cx1 will also be part of the null space, right? And that's it, we have proved that null space is a subspace of Rn. Let's take some examples. So here are maybe some 2-3 examples are available. Let's see. So again, similar vector we take 3 by 2, 1 0 0 and 0 1 0, and we are asked what will be the null space of this matrix. How we find this out is we are going to say Ax equal to 0 0 0, right? The way you can look at it is we can try and take equations and try and solve for it. So let's say now I have this times x, take x as small x and y, then what would happen is there are just two columns here, right? So my x vector will have just x and y, so I can just keep a mark here. So what would this give me? X plus 0y equal to 0. Similarly 0x, so this will become y equal to 0, right? Obviously third one it becomes 0 equal to 0, so that's still consistent. What gives me the solution is got to be 0 0, because that's what we get, right? X equal to 0 and y equal to 0. That's how we figured out the solution. So what does this tell us? It says that the only solution for this Ax equal to 0 is a unique solution, and it's only 0 0 solution, right? Not every time are we going to find. In this case we found that the solution for Ax equal to 0 is a 0 0, but we may find non-zero solutions as well. So question is, if x equal to 0 0, is this a space? In fact, in this case, is it a subspace? Yes, right? So we understood earlier that having the 0 0 or the 0 vector alone is the smallest subspace that we can ever have, and therefore here it is the first example that tells us that we can bring up the null space here. It is just a single vector, and yes, it's a subspace of Rn. In this case, it's a subspace of R2. Okay, let's move to the next example. The moment we see the column vectors like this, immediately it must strike us that it's possible that each is a, you can see that's it's a scalar multiple of the other. Okay, so let's try and solve this. So when we try to solve this, let's keep a x and y here as usual in the previous case. So this will give us x minus y equal to 0 and 2x minus 2y equal to 0. And when we solve for this, obviously we just have x equal to y. What does this mean? It means that we have the freedom of choice, right? So we can pick up any y or any x, and the other will be determined by this. So if I pick up x equal to c, y will also be equal to c. So my solution consists of any vector of the form c and c. To be any scalar I can put here, and I will get this vector which is a solution to the equation ax equal to 0. Now what does this convey? This says that if we try to plot this in R2, this will be a line through origin, right? And therefore this will be a subspace of R2, right? And that is how we are figuring out the null space for this A. Okay, so let us move to one more example. Let's say that this time we have a little larger matrix, a 3 by 3. We are asked to find Ax equal to 0. Obviously, it's not very easy to straight look at this and form the solution. So let's use elimination technique and go ahead. So first I eliminate 2 1, then with 3 1, and then finally 3 2. Okay, now very interesting part here is that we find that there is no third pivot, right? So there is no third pivot here, and therefore we'll have to say that elimination doesn't work, or we don't have a unique solution. Good. When we don't have a unique solution, it says that either you may have infinite solution, or we may have no solution. So which case does this fall into? Now in order to find this, obviously I'll also have to do all the row operations on the right hand side also, which is 0 0 0. But since the right hand side is 0 0 0, any row operation that you do, it will remain 0 0 0. So there is nothing to worry, right? So that's a beauty of having right side as all zeros. So that's going to remain as 0 0 0. And what do we see from this, right? So you have an upper triangular matrix here on the right hand side here. Let's write down the equation. So I have x plus 4y plus 5z equal to 0, minus 3y minus 3z equal to 0, and 0 equal to 0. That's consistent. There is no problem, which means that we are not going to have no solution case. Probably if you would have had something else on the right hand side, yeah, we can say it's a no solution. But it doesn't appear like this here, which means that we may land up in infinite solution. So let's try this. So this gives me y equal to minus z, and from substituting here we get x equal to y. Now again we can fix one of them and the others will get determined on their own. So if I fix z to be c, y becomes minus c and x also becomes minus c, right? So that's how our solution is going to look like. It's going to be minus c and c, or if you want to say fix z as minus c, then this will become c and c. So whichever way, but again what we find is that here is again a line through the origin, right? So if we plot this, and this will be a line through the origin in R3. Okay, so what in summary are we learning is, of course we looked at brief idea of vector spaces and subspaces, but more importantly, when we have a equation or a linear system of equation talking like this, Ax equal to b, we are finding b is related to the column space, while the x is going to be related to the null space, right? Of course that's for Ax equal to 0, but we are going to see the benefit of it. The relation, we are just talking about the relation, b is related to the column space, while x is going to get related to the null space. So that is the summary of this session, and before we leave, let me just take you through a question which you can try and work it out and see, try and see if we can find a solution to this. So why is Ax equal to 0 so special, right? Why do you want to look at that as so special? Why don't we look at any other system of equations? So let M be the set of vectors, right? Let it be the solution space to Ax equal to b, right? Not 0. Let x be all the vectors such that Ax equal to b for a non-zero b. Question is, does this set of vectors form a subspace of Rn? Remember that when Ax equal to 0, this set of vectors x form a subspace, or which we call as null space. They are subspace of Rn. In this case, I just change this to a non-zero vector. What's so special about 0, right? So try and find out if this is going to be a subspace of Rn. Let's end this session with a prayer. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.